I like this.
Is this the Mazzy School of Broadcasting?
Damn it. Foiled by an ad. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, there we go. That just ruined everything.
I could show this record.
All right. That went well. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks so much for joining me. And I've got some great guests that are also with me today. And we're going to talk about some cool stuff, some stuff that you've never ever heard any of these topics before in the vinyl community. We're going to talk about if you had $150, how are you going to spend that money? You're going to spend it on an original, a reissue, an audiophile reissue, 10 Walmart records. Let me get everybody on here. There we go. Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's up?
Thanks so much for joining. I'm sure you guys know everybody on here, but let's go around to the table here. Arnaldo, thanks so much for joining. What's up?
Thank you for inviting me, Jason.
Absolutely. Jason Rojas, what's up?
Hi, Mr. Spins. Thanks for getting me on here.
Mr. Spins, that's a detergent I used in elementary school, man. That was rough. Gave me some
From
rashes.
Spins to Mr. Spins. Well, let's bring Dr. Spins in here. We got Felipe. What's up, Felipe?
Thanks for having me. Thanks
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, a friendly, familiar face here on the channel. We got Chance with Concert Buddy. What's up?
What's up? 2 fingers. Pieces, 2 fingers.
Yeah, we got nothing but peace today. So we got nothing but peace in chat, nothing but peace all around the table today, and good vibes. So anyway, so this actually seemed like a really great topic 2 weeks ago, and I know we kind of jumped into it a little bit on Chance's stream, but I think it's still relevant. It's fun to maybe get into this, into kind of the thought process, especially with some of the guys on this panel today that I know rack their brains trying to figure out what the best pressing is to get and all. Do you go for that original? Do you go for that new UHQR or that Music Master Matters? And I think also this is good timing, and maybe we go to Felipe first, because I know Felipe. I don't know if you want to talk about this. I assumed you just made a purchase around $150, I think.
Plus shipping.
Plus shipping. You want to get into that? And what your thought process was? And now I'm sure you've had a chance to hear it. So what do you think? Tell us what it is first.
I loved it. It's terrific. I think, it's the kind of thing that's not for everybody. I think the first point is spending $150 on something. It depends on where you are in your journey. If you're starting, never do that. Buy $150 records and build up from there and see what you like or not. But if you really like the title, if you know it's going to be a great presentation, if you have the gear that's going to reveal that, if you can have that, if you want, I think it's great. I really like. I found more details, more couple of extra little bells and whistles there that really satisfied me. I think it's better than the 33, which is going to be great for like pretty much most everybody. But if you're willing to go that extra mile, you're going to love it for sure.
And for people that don't know, you're talking about the John Coltrane UHQR, right? The ballads record.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think Chance got a copy too, right, Chance?
Yeah, see, they've got me hook, line, and sinker because I got all the UHQRs. I saw you guys flexing. You guys are social media. There are these social media posts about their shelves with all the UHQRs, and they're cute, but they're not the full arsenal. I gotta take a picture once I get my stuff set up. But yes,
awesome.
I also got ballads. Unfortunately, mine has, and maybe we'll get into this. Do you have a sound effect for womp womp womp? Because I've got a QC issue, small one. The label
no.
off center. Oh no, that's
Sorry. That's
So-
kind of works.
kind of work. No, it's I listened to the first disc. Sounded good. Sounded real good. I mean, they do great work there. Fortunately, I probably have to get a replacement because the labels are like, I think Stevie Wonder was working that day, or maybe Ray Charles was in the label room, because literally the labels are just off center. And I even sent Felipe a picture. I'm like, dude, should I bring this up?
100%. 100%.
100%. I was like, thank
how
you.
off center? How off center?
Let's call it, I mean, eighth of an inch. I mean, it's noticeable, and especially like both sides. So to Felipe's point, you're paying 150 bones. The audio quality is one thing, and you're expecting great audio quality, and and that sometimes can be hit or miss. That's another conversation. But at least from an execution standpoint, like I shouldn't open it up and be like sunk shoulders, like, oh no, what happened here? So now, team in Selena, great. Customer service, great. I'm sure I'll be remedied. I want to be very clear on that if anybody watches this, but still, it's kind of a bummer if you're throwing down 150 bones and shit's off center. Sorry.
Is it noticeable as soon as you look at it?
Oh, as soon as I took it out. As soon as I took it out.
Okay. So
because Arnaldo, you know my process. You know my process. I drew the lavender bath. I had the degritter warmed up. I turned the lights down, a couple candles, but as soon as I took it out, I saw it and I was like, oh no. Literally, that's the first thing I said. That's the last thing you want to say when you open a $150 record is, oh no. But oh no. And then I looked at the other side and I'm like,
it's such an obvious thing too. I mean, how do you miss that? These things are limited, right?
Well, also, I don't think it even should have been sleeved. Like,
yeah,
if it's visually, you could tell the defect visually. Whoever was sliding it in to the inner sleeve would have said, no, this doesn't pass.
Well, and the way they do it, to their credit, so you get the brown box, Mazzy's favorite box, and then they've done a nice job, and it probably helps on returns from the jacket perspective. So the jacket, there's no records in the jacket. They put the two LPs in their single sleeve, rice paper sleeves, and then in a plastics like LP sleeve for themselves. So yeah, as soon as I opened it and pulled it out, as soon as I pulled out that first record, I could see it was already off center, and I thought maybe I'm wrong. And then again, literally, it was irrefutable. So won't.
Yours was good though, Felipe.
Yeah, mine came pristine. No issues whatsoever. But
Felipe got a very low number. I was in the 700.
I think saw that.
Felipe was like sub 200. I forget what it was, Felipe. So maybe after about 500, they went and took a lunch break.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny, because they have two different subscriptions there, right? You have the old guys that they have the prestiges, those blue notes, whatever. That's where I am, and they had the Atlantic 75 is a different type of subscription. So when I called, I said, "Hey, I'm a subscriber. I want to make sure you guys are going to ship my low number," as they always put aside. And she asked me, like, "What's your number?" I said, "Dude, nobody ever asked me that. What you talking about?" "Oh, you're not Atlantic 75." I said, "No." Because apparently Atlantic 75, those people have a number assigned. They know their numbers, everything.
Yep.
My blue note was 234.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. Did you listen to it, Chance, or you just box it back up?
No, I went in a corner. I emptied the bathwater that the lilacs were in. That we were gonna have a nice cleaning ceremony. And I sucked my thumb for the whole night. It was no, I did put it on. I cleaned both discs. I was like, I'm still gonna listen to it. And it sounded very good. Like I'd probably need to give a second listen, because I did maybe it's the recording. I'd have to compare it to my 33. It's been a minute since I listened to the 33. But at least the early parts, I felt like there was maybe a little extra in there, not in a good way. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say it was like no fill or anything like that, because I'm not the person to ask about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, the B-side of disc one, great. The other disc, great. So, and flat. That's the other thing you got to look for in these new pressings is it warped? Because that seems to be more of an issue than it used to be. Seam splits for me. Seam splits were always like the bane of my existence, and they still are. But the warp, especially, hey, record store day coming up. It's a national holiday for Warp Records, because they just print them and rip them, and they just don't care.
What Arnaldo, have you got any? Did you grab that record by chance, or?
I did not. I actually picked up the 33 over the weekend, and I haven't even cracked it open. So I think I'm good with the 33. And I saw that I think I think I had it on not pre-order. I had it in my cart on Amazon, and then all of a sudden it said ships between 1 and 2 months. I'm like, uh-oh, are they low on stock? So I was at a Newbury Comics, and I had a coupon, and it was a good price, so I picked it up.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
What
so
about you?
I don't know. I never listened to it. It was on my list. So can I say it's my favorite album? And should I have waited? I'll find out once I open it.
Yeah. Did you grab it, Jason?
No, I'm off the AP train. I own the OG, so I don't know if I need to spend, 150, I'm pretty sure, for some people it sounds great. I think who mastered it? Was it Ryan K. Smith?
Yeah, I'll defer to Felipe and Chance on that.
Okay. So I've heard a bunch of Ryan K. Smith that he's done for acoustic sounds, and he actually gets really close to the OG. So I'm pretty sure if you compare them, it's going to be probably amazing, right? I mean, the Love Supreme is really good.
Instrumentation is excellent. I do want to say that. You hear these buzzwords, you feel like you're in the room and all that stuff. I mean, it's great. There is tonality of Coltrane is great. I mean, the other guys, who is it? Is Joe Henderson on that, Felipe? You know the other guys. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, Coltrane, Elvin Jones,
Elvin Jones,
McCoy Tyner, and Jimmy Garrison.
Yeah, great. The instrumentation. And again, but at 45 RPM, you kind of almost expect that too, right? There's more room to breathe, there's more space. So
it sounds bigger. I mean, you can sound comes across a little bigger. For sure.
Yeah, I just did that shootout that I was talking about with you guys last week, Out to Lunch, Eric Dolphy, and that's exactly it. It's kind of like you put on the 45 RPM, and it doesn't sound like the original, but if I compared it to the classic series, and it sounds like the same record in terms of mastering. It's just that there's more detail. It's hard to even explain, right? It just feels like you're hearing it's just thicker somehow. And there's this confidence that goes into when you drop the needle on it and you hear the first few notes, it's like, oh yeah, there's no way this could sound better. You don't have to doubt where your money went. It's kind of like, all right, that it was worth it. Well, was it worth it? I guess it depends on how much you want to spend on a record. I think the Out to Lunch is basically, even now in the aftermarket, about what the 45 RPM of ballads is. So, but for me, that's a lot of money, man. I'm not like Chance. I'm not out there buying every UHQR. I didn't grab all the Music Matters. I'm very selective. And
Listen, hey Jason, I wipe my behind with dollar bills. I don't know what you guys are waiting for.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, send some of that toilet paper this way, and maybe I'm, but yeah. So that's kind of thing for me is that there's some of us that are audiophiles and that can afford to go out and spend $150 every record, and that's or more, and that's totally fine. While others of us are out there buying classic series, the bottom feeders, and just trying to scrounge up the best possible pressing we can. But Jason, you have an original.
Yes.
How are you? Is that you across the board, or what's your? Are you sort of a collector of originals, or did you just happen to come across this pressing, or what? Where are you in this universe of grabbing these records?
Yeah, let's back up here. So before this reissue, hype and excitement, when that did not exist, right? The only thing you could do was get originals, right? Or OJCs.
Yep.
Reissues did not exist in probably the late 90s, 2000s. So at that time when everybody was buying CDs, here was I going to record stores and be like, wow, cool. John Coltrane ballads, $8. Sure. I'll take that. No problem. Yep. So that's the thing. A lot of people now are basically coming into it and, you can't buy the OG if it's too expensive. Right. But for me, they were just very plentiful when I was buying records.
Yep. you were wise enough to hold on to all that stuff.
Well, it was more cheaper than the CDs. You have to realize, I think people forget that, like the CDs were selling for between $20 to $40 at that time. And then records were like, less than $20 a pop, So that was like, you could find Blue Notes for $1. I mean, those days are done,
Long gone, long gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, it almost doesn't even matter. You can have not even an OG, like a second version in G plus with all spine splits and taped up of a Blue Note record, and it's still going to cost you $500. It's just crazy.
Yeah, things change. For me, I was just doing the opposite.
Right.
I wasn't trying to. It was the only thing I could do. Right? Do you understand? Like, I wasn't gonna spend $20 on a CD. I was gonna buy,
Right.
$5 less records. At the time.
Yeah, it's funny. Those of us that were moving to CDs probably thought we were high rollers. The future of music is here. Because that's what I was doing. I remember when I sold off my whole Frank Zappa LP collection to, I guess it was Rasputin's in Berkeley or something like that, Berkeley, California, and they're like, "Are you swearing off Zappa now?" And I'm like, "No, I got all the CDs." And of course, I regret those days now. But yeah, no, I definitely drank the Kool-Aid when it came to new technology.
But I mean, it's not a bad thing, because like back then, right, they were hyping it up as like newly remastered or digital, right? These were not
additional tracks and cool stuff like that. Yeah.
Those things were like actually celebrated because it was furthering the technology, unlike sort of like this audiophile sort of thing going on now, right?
Right.
Like stressing AAA, it's just buzzwords. I wouldn't be fooled,
So I know some of the guys on the panel and other vinyl collectors, even when they have the original, even when they have reissues, they're still going for those UHQRs and those 45 RPMs. And it sounds like you avoided it on this one, Jason. But I mean, Felipe, are you jazz is kind of the big one, right? When it comes to this stuff. I mean, when you talk about original jazz LPs, you're talking about big bucks. Are you someone that, what kind of a jazz collector are you? Are you just grabbing these new ones as they come out, or do you collect originals too?
I try to, especially the Blue Notes, the other labels, not so much. But on Blue Note, I try to have the best audiophile pressing there is. Example, Music Matters. And I try to get the OGs as well, as I can afford and find, right? But let's give some examples here. That's a nice OG right here.
Oh man, such a great record.
Right. And here's a Music Matters SRX.
Oh, we got to talk about the SRX. I don't have any of those, and they're really tough to come by. What do you think of that?
Oh, that is terrific. It's fantastic. Yeah, they're really, really silent, well done. The everything.
And it's 33 RPM, right?
These are 33s, yes. So this guy here, for example, I listen to that more than I listen to the OG. And this OG here is like near mint. It came on spring. Just to give an example, they can excel. I mean, they can retrieve more details, sound cleaner, smoother around the edges. Most of these OGs sometimes has like a more rough sound. This Music Matters, Blue Note, for example, Tom Poes, they have a little more round sound. Okay, you hear more details. Things get a better separation, better dynamics in a sense. So this
SRX is like a different formula for vinyl, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much what they do, UHQRs or the MoFi, right? If anybody else does that, I can't remember. But yeah, I think you can see through. Can you see through?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's how they look like. But OGs also sound amazing. I just got an OG roll call this week. It sounds absolutely terrific. I think it's a matter of preference, right? Listening, I think it's such a subjective experience. It depends on what you are, your equipment, what kind of memory it brings to you, everything. So I think in that aspect, there's no right answer. It's like chicken and the egg, right?
Well, yeah, it is so subjective. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. What I found, as long as you have quality vinyl, not a bunch of distortion, not everything, if all things being equal, it sounds well mastered. But except for me, at least, and I don't have a lot of originals, but from what I have compared, it's like, yeah, you get a lot more detail in the top end. And I say a lot more. You notice it when you're like A/B testing it, right? It's like, okay, if I put on a classic series or a 45 RPM, I get that bottom end, I get it feels like it's a little bit more full. But then when I put on an original, it's like, oh, here comes all this detail in the top end. Which is really cool. So yeah, it's kind of like, and I could understand why you might have both, right? Because they're different enough frequency wise and sort of what's in the music to where it depends on what you feel like listening to that day.
Yeah, I think it has to do with your mood, your experiences as well, what you're up for. Sometimes even like it's not like a perfect sound, even like a little noisy. Just the satisfaction, the pleasure of getting that 1955 OG Blue Note record spinning there, and you're enjoying that experience, thinking about where this record went through, what happened. It's been like almost 100 years. It's so amazing. It's an amazing experience.
It's like a historical.
Yes.
Yeah, there's something about being that close to the actual era that it came out. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Jason, not to interrupt, but I didn't want to misspeak, but I wanted to show you guys. And again, I'm not shitting on the product, but I see Jazz Bomb Chris is like, really, 1/8 of an inch.
Look at that thing. I can see it from here.
Right. So look, I'm not like clowning those guys. I'm just saying this is a real thing. And guess what? Tape measure City 1/8 of an inch. So boom, I didn't even measure this. This was a straight up eyeball. So I'm just saying.
Chris says stick to the originals if you can afford them. Yeah, that's just maybe
true.
One day. But also I noticed a difference. Like when I did this comparison, I liked the original, but when I played, I was actually very impressed by the classic series, at least of Out to Lunch. You don't have to flip the record over 3 times, so you got that going for you. And there's a lot of sound there, and it was really mastered well. But the 45 RPM is really good too. So I get it. Stick to originals. And to Felipe's point, like, it's just fun to have that stuff, right? And it's kind of a little aged, and maybe it's boxed a little bit, and and I even like it. Like sometimes the inner sleeve has some writing on it that's from like the 50s or the 60s, which a lot of collectors did back then. I don't know. It does take you back to that time a little closer, but man, they're expensive. Anyone else want to go? Have something to show?
I do. I'm gonna break it up a little bit. You guys are all only talking about jazz here. So I had this reissue, which it says cut from the original cut back when the wording still was not very defined, cut from the original analog masters, and it was done by Chris Bellman.
Oh yeah,
the Ramones' first album.
I have the exact same one. It's terrific.
And yeah, that's what you think. And I thought it sounded good.
It's Rhino, right?
It's low. Can we call it lo-fi? This is not an audiophile record, right?
Right, of course.
No. The recording, right.
The recording, right. Until I came across at a fair a few months ago, an original that was pricey, that has actually the misprint of the songs on the label.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the songs are, I think, Blitzkrieg Pop and what is it? Judy is a Punk, or misspelled.
And a corner cut, nice.
And the corner cut, which means it was either, I think it was a cutout, so I don't think it was a promo. And I couldn't believe when I put this on, and then I put on the Bellman cut. You don't even have to listen hard to notice the difference.
Really?
In comparison, at least on my system, it sounded muddy, the reissue, compared to this. So in this case, I was not expecting such a difference. I bought it more for the artifacts, because I was happy about how the reissue sounded. And it was more the artifact. I looked and I saw it It's in perfect condition. Yes, it got a little bit of yellowing. If I put them close one next to each other, you can tell. And inside the inner is perfect, no seam splits, and it had the misprint, which is the rarer version. And he was giving me a break on it because that was at the end of the show and he was backing up.
Nice.
I figured I'll get it for the artifact, and I was very pleasantly surprised that
that's
it's
awesome.
better than the repress, which I was happy with. So
I gotta find out for myself now.
Yeah.
Felipe will be right on Discogs the minute this ends. He's going straight to Discogs.
And now actually I'm curious because I have originals of the B-52s and Talking Heads, but I happen to have also additional Rhino Chris Bellman cuts, which I understand are also analog, which I never had the time to compare. So
Arnaldo, what do you have against Sire record label?
No, nothing. I love.
No,
when
you mentioned the Talking Heads, I'm saying a thing now.
No, and B-52s were on Sire too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I think so.
And
the Island and Warner Brothers,
and Sire signed the Smiths in the U.S., so I have absolutely nothing against Sire.
It all comes back to the Smiths.
And Madonna's also on Sire, so I have absolutely nothing against Sire.
Yeah. Well, here, can I show this real quick? I don't want to jump anybody, but just because you brought up the Ramones, I recently snagged this, which a first U.S. pressing, and it has like the insert and everything, which I thought was cool. And I was kind of, I'm trying to pick up a few of these Iron Maidens, man. Just to kind of fill in some of the metal collection. And I mean, how do you beat the artwork on these things? So I get home, I drop the needle, and I'm like, oh man, it's clean. First of all, it's like near mint. It's so nice, but the music was not sounding great. And I'm just like, are you serious? This is an original. So I'm having like the opposite experience that you have. So I jump on the forums and everything, and I start looking this up. And of course, there's someone that owns every pressing of these, and they're like, you got to get the Japanese pressings. So I'm like, no, like you just never know. You go to pick up a US pressing of something original and you think, oh, this is going to be the one. I can't wait to hear this thing. And it's so disappointing. So, and when I have stuff like that and I'm like, I'm probably going to want to upgrade this at some point. I'm going to keep my eye out for a Japanese press, but then it's sort of like, what do you do? I guess in good conscience, I could sell it to someone who wants an original US, but I'm kind of like, knowing what I know, it's kind of like, feels a little dirty. I know it shouldn't, but it kind of does.
When you say it sounds bad, what was bad about it?
So things like, and it kind of plagues a lot of rock albums from that era, which is the vocals are very sort of hidden in the mix and kind of muddy, not a lot of articulation. It's so, especially when there's a lot of distortion, like a band like that, it feels like there's just the frequency, it feels compressed almost. It feels like just a lot of, you don't get that articulation from the drums to the guitars to the bass. It feels all kind of in the same space, which makes it feel kind of muddy. And at the same time, you have the vocals kind of recessed too much. And so that's kind of what I got out of it. Just that articulation, it just feels lo-fi. Anyway, so all right, Chance, did you go grab something, or who wants to go next?
I don't want to make Felipe feel bad because I know he's hunting for this one, but I talked about this one recently, and there are a lot of repressings of this. There's the the Albini 2013 mix. There was an early Record Club press. You can find this in stores. You know what you can't find in stores? An original one. And the original. I mean, when you see clear or you see Coke bottle, people call it different kind of colorways, right? It's the same thing, I guess. Naturally, I have a predisposition to be like, oh no, probably not gonna sound that great. So this kind of what Arnaldo was saying. This was more of a, I had read other people's reviews that said it sounded good, but take it with a grain of salt. It's like if somebody recommends a restaurant. And I'm serious. And maybe they don't know what a good burger tastes like. Maybe it's that kind of thing. You gotta taste it for yourself, right? So I picked this up and I went in, and it was kind of like Arnaldo said about the Ramones record. It was like vanity, if anything else. It's an OG. I've got an OG at Nevermind now. Now I got to get the bleach one, which if you need an Uber Eats driver, I'm available now. I'm trying to saving up pennies for that white bleach album. But put this on, knock my socks off. And again, the Albini 2013 mix it's good.
Yeah,
it's not this. This knocks your socks off, and especially if you think about the time. I mean, this is what 93.
93,
so 93. It's got like things that working against it outside of like the actual mastering of the music. 90s pressing, Coke bottle clear. You would think it's a recipe for disaster. Nope, this is huge. And now I know you said $150. I paid more than that, but the point is still the same. Is that like if you want quality,
that's a relative term. 150, to some of us is going to be different.
No. And I'm not trying to flex on like, oh, I'm an elite collector. I'm not. It's nothing like that. But it's like if you want these original pressings, and there's different stages of collection, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this. But eventually, you run out of a lot of the singles and doubles and triples. Now you're at the home run stage. And so that means you're probably buying less, but you're buying better. And you really want to make those dollars count, kind of like we were talking about before. Another example, I didn't pull it because it's in the box. So 1994, Downward Spiral, right? Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails. You would think maybe it's industrial, so you're already like, I don't know how this is going to sound. So it's an original. I bought it at a shop in Louisville, Kentucky a couple years ago. Got home. It sounded like ass. Literally, terrible. Like one of the worst sounding records I've ever heard. Hence, why in 2018, Reznor deliberately went back and had everything remastered for vinyl. And that's what you should get. You should get that 2018 Downward Spiral, because all the 2018 Nine Inch Nails stuff is really good. But the 94, again, if you want to throw the bucks for a vanity and collect OGs, just depends on where you are collecting.
I'm happy you say that, because I got the reissue of Downward Spiral.
That's the one to have. Yeah, the 94. I've only seen it twice. When I bought it, and I saw it once other time, and it's about $2 maybe. I think I paid like maybe 170. That's why I was kind of thinking about the 150 price point. But again, thinking that concept, I wouldn't say misconception, but most times the OG, in my opinion, you have a better shot of it sounding the best. It's closest to the tape lineage. This one, whew, I mean, seriously,
is that even a tape?
I don't know what they did on it, honestly. I don't know if is that the album. Do you guys recall? Is that the album he recorded part of it at the Polanski estate? I know he was living in the old Roman Polanski house and recorded some album there. I don't know if it was Downward Spiral. But regardless, he went back and made it better, and I appreciate that. And clearly, it stuck out to him as not being the best or not being of his quality. That he went back and remastered literally their entire catalog for vinyl. Big props to Trent Reznor.
Yeah.
You still have the OG?
Yeah. It's in a box somewhere. Again, it's one of those things where like if I have that shelf of '90s originals, it looks cool because it's a nice conversation piece. Should you spend $170 on a conversation piece? I don't know. But again, it's like I was saying before, you read some of the reviews and it's like, oh man, this is so great. Well, I don't know Jim 4282 from anybody else. So I'm kind of like, taking a flyer on an internet nobody and their opinion. So again, like, and it's not like if you're at a record store, they do have those listening areas. And I could have done that. If I remember correctly, this was like a multimedia store. So they had CDs, books, that kind of thing. This record was actually behind the glass, so they knew what they had. But anyway, and that's actually probably a good tip if anybody's watching this and is thinking about like these higher price items. If you can sample it or definitely put hands on it, like we were talking about warping before, like buzzkill of all buzzkills is to really buck up on something that's warped, right? Because unless you have a flattener, or if somebody has a flattener and does it right, warps don't go away. Seam splits, sound quality is sound quality, and then warp. I mean, it's bane of my existence lately.
And also, I was just thinking, Chance, to your point, and I think Arnaldo perhaps can give some opinion on that too. Especially that period in time, right? I think vinyl is not a priority here. People are just,
Yep.
half-assing stuff. But abroad, Europe, South America, they were pressing amazing records because those were still, the norm.
Yep.
So this guy here came out last year as a double 45, and this is my OG. I have both, just because of the booklet I bought the reissue. But it's night and day. This is a 93 record. This is my OG. This sounds so much better. There's so much more here, like information, the highs are there, the cymbals, doesn't sound muddy, just like the Ramones you said. And another example, this is 2014 Paulus that everybody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
It's great, it's clean, but again, compared to an OG, it's muddy, I find. That's my OG. Arnaldo has the same copy. How do you like it, Arnaldo?
The Brazilian one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has towards the quieter song, it has a little bit of surface noise, but I think that's due to the vinyl. I don't know. And because that's where I hear it the most. It's a very loud record, so I probably didn't even notice it in the other parts of the record. I just noticed it towards the end. And no, it sounds great. I enjoyed it. I think it's a bargain at the price instead of getting a USOG, which what is it, Chance, now? 300 now? 350?
Oh, USOG, you're $1,200 and up.
Oh, really? That's what it's up at.
Even in neutral has passed that mark a long time ago.
No, seriously, I saw one in Austin that was $500, and I considered for a second buying it just because I knew I could get, I flip it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I have an original, right? To Felipe's point, and I'm kind of telling on myself because as I was really 10 years ago, kind of going on this journey, I swore off. I was like, I got to get all American first pressings, call it American ignorance or whatever. And so I missed out. And to Felipe's point, I was just like, oh, there's a European. Here's a good example. Aerosmith, 1993, Get a Grip. Mm-hmm. Only pressing vinyl in Europe. I was like, no way. That's not an OG. That's not
Brazil too. In Brazil too. I have a copy.
In Brazil too. Yeah. But they sound good. To Felipe's point, that was still a dominant medium, a dominant format for those countries. And so another piece about it, to take it from me, I slept on, gosh, I could have got those Vertigo pressings of the Sabbath catalog. And I'm like, no, I want the Green Warner. You know what I mean? Like complete naivety, right? But in the end, OG is an OG, and especially those 90s pressings to piggyback on what Felipe was saying. Like
the German OGs, they're a real surprise.
Let me go through some of these. I hate to leave our chat out. So we got Chris said, you guys get the jazz at Massey Hall. I have an older pressing of that. I don't know about you guys are about Felipe, but maybe somebody grabbed that.
I do not have.
That says, if you want nice, cheap OG Iron Maiden, get the Russian Gala, which use the UK plates, and Japanese Maiden are horrendous. See, there you go. All different opinion. It's like, okay, we'll go for the Russian Gala. I guess I'll track those down. And if they suck, I'll be tracking you down. No. What else? Sorry, I just want to get through these.
Well, Adam has a good point too, and this is again, it's a good take because he says he has an OG, a Pretty Hate Machine, and thinks it sounds better than the reissue. Could be. When I'm talking about what Reznor went back and did is the things that weren't in circulation, like Pretty Hate Machine, like their first two albums, you could get those pretty on the regular for like $20 or less. But he went back and did Downward Spiral. He did basically anything from 94. Fragile was one, like 94 to like 2006, like that whole era. He went back and like in 2008. I think went back and remastered all those like with intentional vinyl, like vinyl at the forefront, like master.
Even then, that's like pre-record store day, right? How many pressing plants were there at that time?
I mean, 3 to 5? I mean, it was very sparse. If I'm not mistaken. I think 5 to 7 maybe, because you still had what's the one down in Nashville? United. United was still around. Gosh, what's that one? Hell, I'd have to get a map out, but yeah, they were few and far between for sure.
Yeah.
And definitely not Third Man. Third Man wasn't up and running, but that's a whole nother conversation about Third Man quality press.
Oh man. Just pile on to Third Man. Chris says, love my Orb Flattener. I'll be honest. I guess I've just been fortunate. I don't get a lot of records that are too terribly warped. Most of them are pretty good. So I just crossing my fingers on that.
Oh, RTI, of course, RTI was still.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So Jason, you got something to share?
Yeah, so Felipe may know this record, right? I'm pretty sure he does, you know?
Yeah.
So this thing, right?
Oh.
And then there's the reissue, I think that came out in like 2016, 2017, right?
Yeah,
Now,
the Polish song, yeah.
This is Gal Costa. This is, I think, her first record from 1960. Well, it's her second record, right, from 1969.
Yeah, the first one was Caetano Veloso. Yes, a double. Yeah.
So I have like the OG, but this like the stereo didn't come out, I don't think, like until 1982, which is the one right here, right? So this is psychedelic, Tropicalia music, right? If you're not familiar with this, this is like what would you say, Felipe? Like a cross between Sgt. Pepper and some bossa nova on it,
Exactly. Yes.
So
yeah,
it's hard to get this. Like I'm not going to say like it was easy. Like even this 1982 pressing could run you between maybe 40, 60, at the most, right? And then this reissue, I think you can still get it maybe for like less than 40.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't. The thing is,
it doesn't compare. To be honest, Jason, I even checked with the guy that owns my record store. He also collects those, and I have OG. I have the OG mono. This one. Those 80s reissues of those Brazilian records, they are amazing. They sound amazing. They're much cleaner than the OGs, actually.
Yeah, and so this is like very crazy. So this is that 82, and it sounds much better than this recent Polysom reissue. I don't know. Like I like the mono because it's more punchier in a way, but this, like, I have to agree with Felipe. Like there's a bit more clarity on this, which is
It does.
confounding, right? But now that we've said that, we've just raised the price of the 1982.
Yes, the quality of those OGs was not the greatest. I mean, they used to compress a lot to make it fit on one side and things, and also to compensate for crappy turntables as well.
Well,
a label that currently, go ahead, Chance.
I was gonna say the other piece of that too, talking about that kind of stuff. Not that I'm jumping ahead, but like this Tim Maya record, which Felipe turned me on to this artist. It's harder to find shops that actually curate well. So like unless you're just gonna just head down and buy stuff online, and even then it's a gamble. But like there are so few shops nationally that can curate good foreign records, good Latin America records. Like there's, I can count on one hand the ones I would recommend, and two of them are in Chicago. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it's a major metropolitan thing or if it's just different urban areas, but if you're trying to find that OG, like good luck. Like it's at least for me in my pursuits of these kind of things, like finding a good shop that actually curates that kind of stuff is like Felipe, you said your local guy is like interested in that, so that's probably why maybe he's like hyper focused and curating that stuff, or goes on buying trips overseas or what have you.
Well, just to kind of as an extension of this conversation too, and to kind of comment on what Jason just said is there a point where good enough is good enough, or are we always chasing the next one to see if it's better? I mean, will you ever get a pressing of that? Or do you have one now where you'd say like, okay, this is it. It's great. I don't need to mess around anymore. But then when they drop the 45 RPM, are you going to be out there grabbing it?
I think it depends, like if you're curious, right? And it's your favorite record, right?
Yeah.
So nothing won't stop you, right? But I don't want to say like lazy is probably the wrong word. Like if you were just content, maybe that's the better word. You don't want to get another pressing. That's fine too,
Well, and it can be exhausting. Like, like it's, like what Indiana Jones and the Grail of, like the third movie, right? Whatever that one's called. Like to your point, Jason, Spins, like when is enough? Like John Bandy, a lot of us know, he made a really good point the other day on one of my videos that I want to share is that, if you collect long enough, and he's dead right on this, you'll see that the labels reprint a lot of the same titles. There's licensing. It's very similar to the Hollywood formula. Like, it works, it sells, easy money, right? And so the reissue golden era or whatever we're doing right now, there's a lot of really good reissues. but the labels are still just going to continue to churn and kind of, I would say prey, but kind of lean into those people chasing that sound, chasing that best sound. And you got to be careful about a lot of the marketing language, right? Like, I know Rojas and I have talked about this, and it's true. Like, if you go back 30 years ago, where if you looked at a hype sticker on a record, one, was there that much information on a hype sticker? Probably not. Two, the information on that hype sticker, nowhere, maybe in select cases, but generally nowhere was the name of the mastering engineer. So this is kind of a new phenomenon that they've now leveraged this as a selling point. And good, bad, or indifferent, that's a different conversation. But now you have people who are, now it's another piece of the pie that I want to collect all Bernie cuts. I want to collect all Bellman cuts. I want to collect all, and Kevin Gray, right? I want to collect that. And that's fine. But again, and now it's another chase. Now it's another Indiana Jones situation. Now you're on another pursuit to be a completionist or get as many, like Pokemon, right? Like they've literally Pokemoned us to think that you got to have them all. And the reality is you don't. And it's each collector, it's each listener's own journey and own decision at the end of the day. And if they want to lean into OGs, great. If they want to have all 45s and they love getting up every 3 songs and flipping it over, more power to them. I mean, it's really, again, I go back to the restaurant analogy. What kind of food do you like to eat? Some people like burgers and fries. Some people like ribeye steaks. It's a truly a personal choice, but the labels in a lot of instances give you a lot of the buffet to snack on. It's just up to you. Do you push yourself away from the plate? But to your point, Spence, like, when is enough? And I don't know if, because I fell prey to this a couple of years ago. Like when I started getting into like audiophile recordings and stuff like that, I was never chasing the best sound. I was chasing the hardest to find. I was chasing the most illicit. I was chasing stories, like the Universal Fire stuff. Like, to me, that was kind of like what made the hobby and still continues to make the hobby interesting. It wasn't necessarily, I've got to collect all these. Now I know I'm probably a hypocrite because I've got all the UHQRs, but you know, again, my journey has been different, as Arnaldo's would be, as Felipe's would be, as Rojas's would be. So it's a personal choice, but the labels definitely give us a lot to eat. It's just how much do you want to grace on what
Well, and if you had enough food, when do you push yourself away from the table?
Exactly. But also to Chance's point, I think, you gotta, stick to what you like. Don't worry about getting everything. Also, it's a matter of you prioritizing. If you want to really enjoy those records too, you gotta, stop at some point and invest in your system a little bit, right? You don't have to have a 5-figure system, but you put some money aside. Because if you have a crappy system, keep buying audiophile reissues, it's like you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment and paying a lease on a Porsche. It doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
That's a decision I made recently. I upgraded my whole system, and I did a video about it. But I upgraded everything, and it was because, in a way, that's kind of how I felt. I felt like I just got to a point where it was like, I feel like I'm not enjoying this as much as I once did for some reason. And I kept buying more and more records and chasing that audiophile sound and not getting it. And I was sort of like, all right, let's take a step back. Just like you said, Felipe. My system at that time was not anything, to write home about necessarily. So I was kind of, okay, you know what? Maybe it's time to look into this and make some changes, which I did. And I went back and was listening to so many of records that I had in my collection for years that were like listening to them for the first time almost. And it was like, and of course I got a lot of crap like, oh, you should just love the music and all this. Well, yeah, of course, music always comes first. But if you can't hear it, if you can't appreciate it the way it's meant to be heard and really enjoy it, then it's like, it's just, I might as well just listen to it AM radio at that point. Yeah. Of course I want to hear some good articulate music with, with all the sonics that we all love and all that stuff. So anyway, just wanted to jump on that.
Arnaldo, where do you land on this? Because you live in an urban area, right? You live, so you got to be conscious of your neighbors. Like, how do you kind of balance like chasing the best sound, but also like having a good system and also like your space? How do you kind of balance those areas?
When I was in, like, all the way up until I moved to New York, right? I listened to music at my mom's house, where I grew up, very loud. There was no problem blasting. Me and my brother listened to music very loud. Now I don't. I am respectful of the neighbors, and usually I cut it out at 10 o'clock because I live in an apartment building. Even though I'm on the top floor, I still am respectful to the neighbor downstairs, which I don't think actually they're around, but still. But apart from that, I actually wanted to share something else with you guys. And on the topic of the UHQR, spend it on the reissue or the OG. So I think this one was the first or the second UHQR that I got, the Jimi Hendrix Are You Experienced? And I guess I was kind of FOMO'd into it because the first one was sold out. There was a very limited run on the
well, they did the mono and the stereo of the
Axis.
right. Yeah, yes.
But I love this album, and I think this may have been the first or second. I don't remember if I bought the Jethro Tull first or this one.
Jethro Tull was the third one. So you had the first two, Axis, Tull. I think that one was 4 or 5.
So this is 4 then, I guess. Does he write it here anywhere? No, it's 5. It says 5. What was the fourth one? Okay.
Miles Davis. I think, was it the Miles Davis? I can look it up.
Kind of Blue 32 came before.
Anyway,
that, yeah.
So I love the presentation. Sounds really great, or it lived up to the expectation. But then I pulled out the George Marino cut. Also all analog.
That's a remix, right?
No.
No?
It's cut from the original master tapes by
Oh,
George
okay.
Marino, also pressed at QRP. Not on Clarity vinyl, but just plain black. There's a difference, but I don't see $100 difference in the sound.
$20. That's
$25.
a great $20 investment. It is a sneaky good $20 record.
Yeah, the presentation is fantastic on the UHQR. No one's knocking that. And it sounds fantastic, but not $100 more fantastic than this, in my opinion. Now, I don't know who else has both and maybe can confirm or object. You do?
I do, and I agree exactly what you're saying. I think that the UHQR is really good.
And if you love the album, if you're a fan or you're collecting all the UHQRs,
oh yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead. But
Yeah.
if you're looking for value for your money, I think the 25 will get you 90%, 95% there. And the little extra is in sound is the UHQR.
Yeah, I think to go back to what Spence said earlier, if you want the best of the best, I would say the UHQR by a couple hairs. Exactly what Arnaldo's point, because that Merino is excellent. It's an imprint. It's $20, and if you don't feel like going, I think when that came out, UHQR was 125. It's before it went up to the. So you're talking literally $100 difference. Not to mention, I think it's a 45 cut, right? I forget.
No, it's 33.
33. Yeah. So you're not even getting like any kind of differentiation between, like how the music is spaced out, right? So literally $100 difference. Now, if I wasn't collecting the UHQRs, would I make $100 difference like that? It's a nice album. I like the album, but I'm not a Jimmy super duper. $100, man. Put that $100 towards something else is what I.
Hold on. I got to kick Chance off the stream. Hang on. Sorry. Yeah, I had one. I thought they did a remix. Somebody remastered those, I think, right? I grabbed it on like Amazon. I thought the label was the same one I had, and it was terrible. I didn't really care for it. I'm fortunate. I grabbed I say fortunate, but I grabbed like a second version of that. Not the 3-color label, but the 2-color label. And it sounds fantastic. And then to Felipe's point, it's like, it feels like you're holding it's not an original, but it takes you back to the early 60s and late 60s rather. And so it's fun that way. And it sounds fine. But
now, Jason, I'm sure you have the OG, right?
I would suggest not going for either of those pressings. This is the opposing viewpoint. You should go for a UK track, okay? Give it a listen, And this is the crazy thing. That thing came out in mono and then stereo, right? The mono thing sounds a bit more punchier. And I think, what is a track? They're the same people. I think they use the same pressing plant as Brunswick, who produced the Who records. Yeah, there's a little bit more high end on it, but it's very punchy, So, I mean, you could chase the audiophile route, or you can try getting an OG,
What the
Do you know
risk?
if that was folded down from stereo, even though the mono came out first? I know a lot of that era they were folding down the stereo.
No, I don't think so. Because
No?
the way, what is that
No.
song? The third Rock from the Sun, is that what it's called? That song?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
There's something about it in the way the stereo presentation is. Like, this is why I didn't like the UHQR. It just felt so much clarity where I was kind of like, what's going on here? This isn't the record I remember. Like, Jimi Hendrix should be like singing and like his guitar should be in your face, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I didn't understand like, okay, everything's a bit separated, but I don't know. I just felt like the track mono that I remember, like that thing is exquisite. And I think it's maybe a little bit less than the UHQR used. Maybe not. You could take a look.
But what condition though, and where are you going to find it? That's the problem.
Well, see
You know,
in
if you
England.
buy it, if you buy it on
It has
Discog,
in
it's always
August.
a gamble.
Yeah. And you get the more the better covers on those too, those UK pressings. Jimmy's preferred covers, I think, right, on those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a different track order, right?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think so
and it
too.
doesn't
Yeah.
have the singles, right? So that's what I
Yeah.
remember. Like the singles are in, like Purple Haze is not on there. What's the other one? Foxy Lady's not on there.
Mhm,
Now,
yeah.
Why would I want that?
oh, come on, Arnaldo. Like we could have, that guy, that French guy in WFMU, he probably had it. Could have talked him down on it.
Hey, if you're taking, I didn't know that there was a different track listing. You're taking off Hey Joe and Foxy Lady?
No, I think it's
Purple
Foxy
Haze.
Lady and Purple Haze.
Oh, Purple Haze? That's even worse.
Man, you don't kick off with Purple Haze? Wow. It's a whole different
What
experience.
does it start with?
Yes,
If it's not
because I'm sorry. No, I think he was going to the studio like randomly recording tracks. It was not something like so linear and perfect. So I think they just put things together.
Whatever
and,
they had, right?
I
They
can't
released
believe
it
it.
and
Jason is
released it.
100% right. There is no Purple Haze on this. What kind of UK bullshit is going on here?
Was you have to understand, like at that time, like he made it big in the UK first, so they were more into singles, right? So
Yeah, true.
the single was like gonna be more priority. And Felipe is right. Like the thing is, I mean, in reality, like that album is haphazard. I mean, luckily, I think was released in the US on Reprise, right? They have the common sense to like put the singles on and have an order, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that record seems to me like it's the one that's the least care goes into the sequencing. It does feel like just two sides of tracks of singles almost. Whereas then when you get to Electric Ladyland, it's like an experience, right? It's like those tracks are very well sequenced. So I kind of like the topic of when is enough enough. Does anyone else have any comments on those? I mean, on that? I mean, whenever these guys come out with these new, and because to Chance's point, they're going to keep, as long as we keep buying them, they're going to keep pressing them.
They're going to keep cooking. They're going to keep making those donuts. Now, again, you go to a donut place. Some donut shops are better than others. You like Dunkin'? They're going to give you Dunkin'. But, man, you got to find that old school.
Krispy Kreme.
Yeah,
Krispy
yeah, exactly. Krispy Kreme. Hey, listen, there's nothing better than a fresh, hot Krispy Kreme original glazed. I'm going to be honest on that.
Look,
however,
even the packaged ones that you buy at the supermarket are better than Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a paperweight.
I love the Super Bowl ad. I don't like the donuts, but no. But the point is, like, if you know what you're looking for, right? Like you can get donuts and you can get reissues in a lot of places, but you got to know what you want to eat, and so and pick a lane too, because I think that's also kind of another kind of byproduct of this reissue renaissance, the vinyl renaissance we kind of are going through right now. It's great. There's so many options, but the options, it's almost like you have too many options instead of like you pick a lane. And I know cost can be prohibitive about OGs, but you hear it all the time: quality over quantity. You know what I mean? Like, because I think at some point, and hopefully you guys can relate, or maybe don't, I'd love to hear it. You get to one point where like your space is a consideration. Like, how much do you really need? And if you want, if it's a record you really love, you listen to new sports. It's embarrassing how many copies I have because there's 2 different hype stickers. That's me. That's not Felipe. That's not Rojas. Yeah. But I'm sure that they have titles like that too, that they're just like super like cool about. Knock yourself out. But I think you got to pick a lane. Like if you want to get into audiophile, go audiophile, but don't go head first, and do your research. Find somebody you can trust their opinion. It's like anything else, like the news, like look at multiple opinions before you trust complete third strangers. Oh,
so there you go. Hey man, once it sounds great,
you're
done.
Followed me in this one because of the hype sticker. And I went to look it up on this box. It's not even listed with this hype sticker. It's
you got to upload a photo.
Right. You have to say yours is more expensive because yours has the hype sticker. So $100. Right?
Of course.
And then leave a comment. Mine's the one with the hype. I love nice. I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, having a nice copy. I forgot what I was going to say. What about Felipe? If Music Matters suddenly starts reissuing these records in some kind of way, I mean, they only did, most of them are out of stock, right? And they just seems like they just printed those 2008, 2009, whenever those came out. If you go to the website, like that's kind of it.
No, they were pressing till 2020. That was the last run of SRXs.
Oh, the SRX, right.
Yeah. 19 and 20, they did two groups of SRXs there. They still have a few things in stock, and things that are found, they come back online rarely, and you have to keep checking. But I'm not sure. I'm trying to get into the story yet, but I think they're just running out of license. They cannot print more. They're just selling what they still have left.
But what I actually am curious about, since you're talking about it, if there's still a demand for those, why aren't they repressing them? Is it a matter of the license, you think? Because they're reissuing them as Blue Note Classic, some of them, right?
Yes.
So they technically have the license. And plus there's no license really to have that's Blue Note catalog.
Yeah, but Music Matters does not belong to Blue Note.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
No,
sorry.
No, it's a single. It's separated. Yes, it's separated. So that's why Joe Harley ended up going to Blue Note. Blue Note kind of, come here, do it. Let's do it in house. That's not,
Yeah, Chris says that they don't want Music Matters to have a license because they want to press their own.
Hang on a second. I got to take some medication. Rojas, did I just read you say I'm a very curious person and got the Thriller one step? Oh, no. Say it ain't so.
Yeah, that was like a while ago. And I compared
friends don't let friends get the MoFi Thriller. Come on, man.
What did you think of it?
It's
got it too, Arnaldo. Oh no, this is happening.
It's what you expect from MoFi. Like with MoFi, you're expecting a bit more audiophile, which means like a bit more clarity, right? Maybe deeper bass in a way, right? So you get those things, a very, and I have to say, it's like a very clinical kind of sound, right?
Yeah.
While that USOG, the original pressing, mastered by Bernie Grunman, like I'm pretty sure he didn't put his like initials on that, it's in the credits, right? But that's a fun record,
It is.
Do you have an original? Do you have, the first pressing?
Oh,
yeah. I also had like the half step that like Columbia did. Was it Columbia? Yeah, I think so.
I have the half speed as well.
That one sounds good too, in a way. Like they kind of messed with the EQ, but that one's a fun one too. I've noticed that like a lot of people, they say those half speeds, those like Columbia epics, they sound too bright. Like I don't agree. They're good. There's like a couple ones. Like I actually recommend the Billy Joel Stranger. I think Tim from University Vinyl, he bought it, but that one sounds better than my white label promo,
Yeah.
And I'm just shocked by it,
So this is a pro move when you're shopping it, because that's a record. I hate to say it, guys, but that's like Huey Lewis and the New Sports. I'll pick up a copy of Thriller just to look and see if it has that co-producer credit. Because if it doesn't, then if you get a first pressing, that's what I gift to people, especially like people getting into vinyl or people collecting, collection building. That's the copy I'll get for $10-15 and be like, this is what you want. Because
that's the copy I have too. I guess my question is that is enough. I think that's a fantastic. I think that album sounds great. Like I'm not someone that's going to go out and spend like $100 on one when I'm like, this sounds great. Like, and I haven't heard the vinyl edition of the 40th anniversary, but I've heard the digital, whatever version of it and everything. And I can see what people are talking about in terms of, but to your point, Jason, it does sound almost kind of clinical. But even having said that, there's something about it that I don't know. It's such a nuancy thing, right? It's just such a subjective thing about that. Because for some people, they're gonna freaking love that pressing probably over the original. But for me, I'm like, I can go get an original for $10. To Chance's point, like, why am I spending $100 on this reissue?
Right. So I'm gonna give you the Coke or Pepsi challenge. Ask any record collector you know if they would prefer the MoFi over the first press or even the half speed. I have yet to meet that record collector because this comes up at my local record store, my record collecting friends. Honestly, I mean, if point them in my direction, I'd love to hear them sell me on it because yes, Jason said exactly. Clinical is the perfect word because it was literally in a lab engineered and like they took all the fat out. But you need fat on your body, guys. I'm sorry, it's science. And I forget who said it, but it's a dance record, right? Like you want it to like just thump and really make you feel. And I can appreciate the MoFi guys. I'm not trying to dump on them, but again, like you said, Spins, you want to pony up $100 for something that I think they probably knocked it out of the park. You can hit a home run in your first at bat. Hell, you can hit a home run in your first ever at bat in the major leagues. Sometimes it happens. Which are those records? Mississippi State, yeah. But I mean, the same point, right? Like, and again, if you want to go on that sound journey and make that assessment for yourself, please, your money. I'm not telling you how to spend your money, but I have yet. If you guys have met the collector who says the MoFi is better, out them now or forever hold your peace.
And truth to be told, I think the first 3 Michael Jackson records, they are like top-notch sounding. Bad is amazing too, and Off the Wall. Those 3 OGs are like
OGs.
I always pull up if I move my speakers, if I do something in my room, first thing I play Bad. Because to me,
hey, Spike Lee's got a hot take. He said that Off the Wall was better and more important than Thriller, and I kind of agree with him because you can't make Thriller if you don't make Off the Wall. Because Michael was chasing greatness, like he was obsessed. I mean, if you watch that documentary, it's on Showtime about Thriller. I mean, he was like literally obsessed about that album, and he wouldn't have been if he didn't, like really want to continue to break free from the Jackson 5 and his childhoodness and all that kind of stuff. But Off the Wall is awesome. That's and that one's another one you can find for like $10. Don't go to your local store to try to sell you that.
Yeah. Like Spectrum Archive says, I don't see how they can make certain albums sound better and better and better. The only motivation to buy a reissue would be with interesting bonus content. Yeah. The thing that's interesting too is that they can always tweak the mastering or remix it a little bit and start, this one really brings out the cymbals. And it's like, yeah, I got to have this one that brings out the cymbals. This one really brings out the vocals. Like you can F with these things forever. And I think to Chance's point, like when is this just marketing speak? And when is it actually adding something to your listening experience?
But Jason, you can hear the cowbell. Have you ever heard the cowbell on that song like before on this 50th anniversary?
Chance, why are you hating on the MoFi Thriller?
Well, let me pull off my mask. I am really...
Well, I mean, we've been on for over an hour. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys feeling done? Or are you guys feeling like you want to keep going or what? I want to be respectful, especially since a lot of people I'm on the West Coast. It's like 7:00 for me, but I know for some of you guys, it's getting late.
I mean, I can roll for another 20 and then I got to bounce, but I'm happy to keep talking. I mean, talking records, I enjoy it. Plus, I enjoyed not hosting. I hate to say it, but it's nice to actually flat my gums instead of having to monitor the chat and, be conscious of people.
And fight off evil people.
Well, like, hang on, does everyone have a wrench? Let's make sure everybody gets a wrench here because apparently that's a line of demarcation.
What's funny is I had to go look that up. That's how naive I am. I'm like, what wrench? What is that? And both me and my girlfriend were like, what is that? So I'm like trying to look it up to see what it was. But anyway, I don't pass out wrenches. I'm not that cool. So
yeah. Well, Jason, I'm going to step out. It's getting late here for me, but I'll keep listening to you guys. Thanks so much. I'll be anytime you need. I'm going to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for being there. It was a great discussion, great panel, and lots of fun. And I think take home message: people just listen to what you like, stick to what you like, and then whatever you like the most, go for the most extreme in pricing and whatever. Right.
That's right. And Felipe fully endorses Tim Maya, and he's not wrong. Good stuff.
This is the guy, man. This is the guy. Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
Felipe. I appreciate you joining,
See you guys
man.
later.
We'll see
Have
you
a
next
good
time.
night. See you next time, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
So did anyone pull out some other records they want to show? I don't want to jump over that. If someone has something else that they've grabbed.
Sure. So we'll talk about what you were saying about a remix. And do you like remixes before I show this record? Do you?
Me?
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, probably not. I'd probably prefer an original, but also and I want to answer your question as briefly as possible, but I'm also not someone that has to have it exactly like the original. If they can make some improvements in the mastering, then I'm happy with that. Remixes kind of depends.
Okay. So,
hey, Jason, please don't pull out the anniversary Kanye remix of Thriller. Please do not. No. I will GTFO out of here. Please don't.
So this is one of the first records I heard, I think, like in the 90s, right? And nobody cared about this band, right? So this is the Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, right? So this is one of like a very like infamous country rock record. Most people don't know, like this thing sold poorly. Like this was like not a hit. Like it was frowned upon. Like they were like, what is this? Like Byrds go country? Is this a joke? Now, what I want to show is this thing that came out on Record Store Day, I think in 2018. Now, this thing is a 4 LP monster beast.
Whoa.
Okay. Now, what I remember was that before this reissue came out on vinyl, it was like a remastered CD version that came out. And this is like the Byrds, they ruined my life. I mean, I'll be honest here. Like I got the records from the library, compared them to the CDs, and I'm like, why do they all sound different? Which one is the right one? And can you imagine, like, I'm a teenager going to the record stores. They weren't necessarily popular. And I'd be like, hey, I have these Byrds things. Like, why do they sound different? And, like, people were, like, looking at me like, what the hell?
Why are you listening to the Byrds?
Yeah. Like, why? Like, and I was like, wait, so there's a mono version of this? Why the hell? Do you see, like, I was like a kid, like, what? Mono? What? Why?
Your brain wasn't ready for that kind of information.
Yeah, it ruined my life. I mean, look where I'm at now, like getting this thing. But anyway, this is basically from that expanded CD version, and this thing sounds great. Like it sounds better than the original, which is mind-blowing.
So what makes it a 4-disc set, though?
So I think it's because that expanded CD has all those bonus tracks, plus they include that International Submarine Band, which is like Graham Parsons, I think one of his bands that were like signed up. But I mean, it has all these outtakes, and this thing's phenomenal.
Was that
when you say
remix?
What do you mean by remixed?
There's just something about the way this thing sounds, like compared to this. Like you can hear a lot more clarity, a lot more instruments. Like this thing is clouded. Like honestly, like you can't just change it unless something goes on here.
I have the Legacy Edition CD set. Set. Is it the same track listing and is it the same mix?
It should be, minus that International Submarine Band, I think.
Okay.
Unless you buy that deluxe edition, I think that's a 2 CD, right?
Yes, that the Legacy Edition I think is the 2 CD set. Is it the same?
I think it should be the same.
It is okay.
Yeah, and I think this. I mean, I didn't know about this, until like last year. I was like looking up Byrds and finding out that like Kevin Gray had done them, and like I bought a couple, and I'm like, this isn't the way I heard it or whatever. And then I found out about this. I'm like, oh no, you're right. Like I had that urge, I need to get this, and then it was going for like over 100. I'm like, oh no, this is not good, right? So I I'm a patient person. Like I waited it out. Some guy had it on eBay. No one was bidding on it. I think I got this for 60,
Sniping.
which
Nice. That's the way to
near
do
the
it.
same price that it came out on 2018 in RSD. So I was lucky. Right?
Was it sealed?
Yes, I opened the sucker up. I could,
Wow.
So
one of my favorite records,
two quick questions, Rojas. So is the original on Asylum?
No, it's on Columbia.
So it's Columbia. Okay. Second question. I don't know how you guys feel. I saw on that reissue you just flushed.
Mhm.
Whenever I see that We Are Vinyl sticker, I'm always apprehensive because it is. No, I'm serious. It's a mixed bag.
Of course.
It is like literally. It's almost polarizing. To me, it's almost a detractor because I've had so many poor experiences with that sticker and the titles that Good, Bad, or Indifferent have had that sticker on there, like especially the hip hop stuff. Holy shit, it's terrible. So I'm glad to hear they made good stuff.
I think it was just a campaign that Sony was running, that they would put that We Are Vinyl on almost all the things that they were doing for a period of time. I want to say, what was it, like maybe 2016 through 2018, or maybe, or maybe 2019.
Okay.
I don't know. They were putting that We Are Vinyl because I think I have around the same time, Bruce Springsteen.
Yes, there you go.
Had all those Plangent sourced vinyl are all the same, I think. So, but some of them have that We Are Vinyl sticker on there, and I think it was just a campaign that they were doing at the time. I could be wrong though.
Chance, next time you're in Texas, you will come over this time. We'll play these rare records, I mean, and that's the thing I was going to say, like earlier, Jason Spins, like, when I was like a young broke college kid, like I had these older friends, they were like into jazz. They were deep jazz heads and they had OGs, right? So I would go over their place, and at that time, like my girlfriend hated me. She was like, you're not going over their place again. But I was like, I had to, because I couldn't afford those records, some of them. So I'd go there and just listen to it. So that's the thing. Like, you don't have to buy all of these things. You can't own everything, right? So make some friends, Anybody that's ever in Texas, like, hit me up. We'll listen to some of these rare records, like Chance. We'll see, Chance. You hate on this We Are Vinyl. We'll see.
You're going to be converted.
I feel like he's got one chair in his listening area, and you sit down, and then he straps you in like the electric chair, and you're forced to submit to what he's going to put and play for you,
like a Clockwork Orange or something.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And they keep your ears open, right?
Your
ears over your ears, like instead of eyeballs, they're keeping your ears open.
I love the Notorious Bird Brothers. Do you like that record too?
Yeah, so they actually had that. I went to the record store, like the local one, and they had like 2 versions of the mono, and I was like, I was conflicted. Like, should I get this again? But I was like, no, don't. Like, don't. Like, put them away. Like, I only got things that I don't have, right? But the price was so good. Like, it was like one of them was 12, the other one was 8, and I was like, oh man.
Oh yeah.
This is, I mean, the Notorious. So that one's got like what? Artificial Energy. That thing opens up with that. Like, that's so amazing.
Crazy, yeah. It almost feels like kind of the transition into like that album, the one you just held up. It sounds a little more Western, but also super psychedelic. Yeah, it's really cool.
Like the expanded version, I don't know if you remember that. It was like a 1 CD or even, I think it was the 1 CD. They had that outtake where they were making fun of Michael Clark. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't know if I remember, but I think I have heard that when you mention it.
Like he was like playing, like he wasn't playing poorly, but they were just like teasing him, and then Crosby, God bless his soul, but he was an asshole on that outtake where he was just like ripping on like Michael Clark, the drummer. And then you can hear Chris Hillman like, what's the matter? Can't play the drums? You're like, dude, don't do that. Like, not now. Like, you're in Columbia Records studio. Like, what are you doing? Like, come on.
Oh my God. It's funny to hear some of that stuff because, it almost, in a way, it's demystifying because when you're young listening to this stuff, I mean, like to Chance's point, like I didn't know who these engineers were. I didn't even know if there was an engineer. As far as I knew, this stuff just hatched out off trees or whatever. I was young, just grabbing this stuff. But it's funny when you do get those outtakes and you hear, or even read some of the articles and stuff about how things went down. Like, I couldn't imagine David Lee Roth not getting along with the rest of Van Halen. Was that even possible? And then it's all exposed and everything's ruined because it's like, oh man, I thought these guys were all families and, loved each other, as much as I love their music. It's funny.
That's why I love those documentaries they have coming out now, especially behind the making of, because like, I don't know when that changed where they would release and do the making of at the same time. Maybe that was like a mid 80s, early 90s kind of thing. But talking about the Thriller documentary, talking about anytime when you can see like Quincy Jones at the board, I think that's cool as hell, right? But
yeah,
he was one of the few, talking about those hype stickers. Like, he's probably one of the few back then, especially early 80s, late 70s, that they probably put Quincy's name somewhere on there just because he had such credibility, right? Like, it was a short list, definitely shorter than now. I mean, goodness gracious, you can count all the premium, air quotes, mastering engineers on two hands. But back then, I mean, it's what Quincy. I mean, nobody was saying Robert Ludwig, even though he was great. You know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting way that they've kind of diversified and also made it a selling point of, Ryan K. Smith, right? Like, he's the latest and greatest, right? So interesting.
That's very true, especially when you say Quincy, because I knew him as the producer of Thriller. That was it. Like, I didn't know he had this long history of jazz and trumpet playing and stuff until I went and bought a Count Basie record, and it was like all compositions by Quincy Jones. And I was like, what? And I started looking a little bit more into it, and man, this guy's had such a colorful history and career and stuff. But yeah, at the time, we all knew him as the guy that produced Thriller, And the only other name that really came up, which I think really came out during the CD era, was with jazz. You would see RVG printed on everything. It was like, this is the RVG, CD or what. And you just start seeing those initials on everything during the CD era. And those were really the only two guys, and maybe George Martin of the Beatles or something, but that was really it. I'm trying to think if I have anything to show off. I don't know. I feel like we're done. I don't know. I should have counted some. How do you do this, Chance?
Oh, no.
How do you do this?
Can you highlight Spectrum Archive's recent comment?
This one?
Yeah. So honestly, like, I don't know about jazz. Like, I don't know if I can hear a bunch of takes. Like, it depends if you're interested in the evolution of the music, right? That's the only thing. Like, but with this like Birds thing, like, the thing is, like, if you know this record, they removed Graham Parsons' vocals, right? Because he was signed to, what is it, the Lee Hazelwood label or something.
Oh,
but he was still on contract, so they removed him, and he only sings on like 2 songs, I think, like 100 Years From Now and Hickory Wind. He doesn't sing on the rest, but they added those, like, so it's so cool to actually hear him sing those songs. But if he would have sang everything, then he would have taken over this album. Like, that would have been too far.
For sure.
Well, hey, let me go back to this one. Chance, I definitely agree. The RATM have those 2 stickers and do not sound that good.
That's one, because that was an anniversary edition too, right? And that was before I had an OG. So I had that, and don't laugh, I had the picture disc of that Rage Against the Machine self-titled debut. It's ass. But when you get the original, who I have to go back, I think it's Bobby Ludwig mastered that 92 original. That's where he won it.
That's the one. I have none in my collection. That's the one with the little kid on it.
It's that famous photo of the child burning. I don't know the political. Like, it's black and white, kids on fire.
No, I'm talking about the kid with the red shirt. Doesn't he have a red shirt on another
Are you
one?
thinking of Evil Empire? That's the second album.
Okay. Yeah,
Evil Empire is 96. The Death Self-Tie is 92. Battle Los Angeles 99. But not to spoil it for you, somebody already might bought it. Josie Records, based in Dallas, actually has an original pressing in their store right now, and it's on Discogs because I saw them do a flip.
How much is it?
If memory serves, I think they had 120 on it.
That doesn't sound like a lot, though.
It
for a 90s record.
Well, I hate to say this, guys, but if I ever do a video on like my greatest steals, I got that record less than 5 years ago at my local shop or my local record store or record show, excuse me, for $20 sealed.
What?
20?
Did he not know what he had?
There was a kid running the booth, and I just don't think he knew. And it was one of those ones, like, I hate to say it, but like I was 75% sure it was an OG. Like, I was kind of like on my phone, Discogs, look for blah blah blah. But since it's sealed, then you can't check the matrix, and you're kind of like, But shit, for $20, I mean, that's what the reissue was going for. So I took a flyer, and I'm glad I did because I mean they should. I mean, what's the statute of limitations on theft? Because I don't want the cops showing up.
Somebody did a Facebook post that I saw today about a guy that got a super cheap pressing from somebody. And of course, all he got was all this hate about what you didn't tell the guy that it was worth more money. It's like, who are these people that are out there telling people like, this is actually $100 record. You should let me give you $100 for this.
This is the American pickers-ification of the hobby. And it's good and bad because Mike Wolf, to his credit, from watching that show, one thing I always remember is if you've never seen it before, that's the time to strike. Great lesson. The other thing that he did on the other side is that because cameras are there when he's like, oh, no, really, let me give you $40 more for this thing, and here's why. I appreciate that, but I don't know about you guys, but one of the great things about this hobby is the hunt and the score. And if you've done your research and you know what to look for, and, like if you go on eBay is kind of like the last treasure trove to me of online, like using your knowledge for the better. Case in point, John Mayer's, was it Bigger Thing? I think it's the second album. I got a sealed copy. I knew what to look for. I knew to look for the horizontal barcode. I knew what made it different. Other people didn't. And so when that's $100 record and I got it for 20, I have zero remorse. I did the work. I was, you know what I mean? So like, those are the things that still kind of like feel good about the hobby today. And to that point, Jason, like there's always going to be people who are going to be butthurt about something. So I can't, why am I going to, if the owner or whoever sold the record didn't know what they have, I'm not in the business of ripping them off, but I'm also not in the business of educating them either. Maybe after the fact, or if it was at my friend's store, like I've told my friend of mine has a shop. I've told him plenty of times, like, hey, this thing that's been dead stock in your bins, you could sell this online for like double. Like that's just because like that's just a solid, I mean, that's my friend. But like, I'm sorry, you gotta be ruthless. You gotta be ruthless on them streets.
And you got to do something to mitigate all this money that we spend on this stuff, right? It's like,
right. And Jay and Rojas said this earlier, back when you could get records on the cheap. I mean, that the barrier to entry was why people like Jason was collecting records over CDs back then, or why I was collection building 15 years ago at the Goodwill for 50 cents a record. You know what I mean? That was what led me back to the format, not, at the time, it wasn't like, oh, the sound quality is better. It was more of like, holy shit, for $10, I can literally get 100 records or whatever it was, done. You know what I mean? And then it took me on that journey, which store. Yeah. Oh yeah. The thrift. Yeah. I mean,
I made it to finally, I found the savers.
Oh, how was that for you?
It was horrible.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
Here's what nothing. I know. Here's what JC. So JC, because when he has these saver scores, I'm always blown away. And I always send him a note like, you bastard. But he said it on the interview. He goes multiple times a day.
That's the thing.
You know what? I was wondering, does he go to the same one multiple times?
Yes, he goes to the same one. He goes at least 2 times a day because that's part of his routine. More power to him. Hats off. No hate, no judgment.
Well, I know. But if he puts that much effort into it, he deserves to get a score. You know what I mean?
2 million%. But yeah, Arnaldo, I haven't hit on a Savers record in like 6 years. And I literally, I literally was in that area when the guy was rolling out a cart of, I'm assuming someone passed away. It was all these, like the Star Wars soundtrack 77 with the poster, like all kinds of shit. And of course, Blood in the Water, Here They Come. I just happened to be standing in that area and got to it first. That was my last good Savers score. So all power to JC. I love hearing when anybody pulls like cool stuff. Yeah, maybe I'm a little jealous like a Nano. But more power to you, especially if you do the work. He goes twice a day. He's got relationships with several of the people there. Excellent. But yeah, Savers. I was at a Savers like 2 weeks ago, and you know what I saw? I think the best record was Barbara Streisand in the Superman T-shirt. I was like, oh,
Oh,
God.
there was plenty of Barbara Streisand there.
Well, and you're like tempted to buy it because you're like, I got to leave with something. I mean, I got to.
There was a time where I'm like, well, I drove all the way out here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only thing that I actually stopped and looked it up on Discogs, and it was suspicious because you guys know the Warner Brothers brown paper inner that was used in the 70s.
It said Warner Brothers print on the bottom. Is that the one?
No, it has almost like an area where you can cut it out and mail it. I don't know if you've ever seen it. In any case, I recognized it and I figured, oh, this has got to be something from the 70s. I pull it out and it was only one disc of Trout Mask replica. And it was actually in pretty decent condition. And I looked at the matrix number and it was I think it was like a second pressing because it was on the Reprise label. I forgot what the original label. Jason, you remember which one it was? The original.
It's straight.
Huh?
Oh, it's on straight. Yeah, that's right.
Straight. Okay. So that was already suspicious. I'm like, wait a minute, is this the original label? And then I looked it up. It was a second pressing. And then I was like, what am I doing? I'm buying. I know it's only $4, but it doesn't have the jacket, right? It's only the inner sleeve. And I'm like, I put it back. I was like, no, I'm not.
That's so funny. I actually got, and again, I made a video of it, but I got like a nice haul of records out of a thrift store in my area in Portland, which, I mean, to Chance's point, like those days ended like abruptly. There was a time when you could go to the thrift store, if you guys remember, and it was just like, it was like a record store. It was like, you could just pull stuff out of there, Hendrix and, whatever, Grateful Dead, Led Zeppelin. And I never have that experience. So I just give up. Why am I going to waste my time? And then I just happened to, it's funny because it was on my birthday and I was like, I feel like going in this thrift store. And I went in there. The first thing I saw was Jerry Garcia solo album, his first one. And it was on white vinyl. Turns out it was this like German pressing that's like got some value. And so I pulled it out and then there was another one behind that. And then there was another one. A first pressing of Pink Floyd's The Wall was in there. And I had a stack like this and my girlfriend's going like, what are you doing? But they're $3 a piece. And I've gone back in there like 2 other times since then. And it's back to Barbara Streisand again. So I don't know what happened. There was a glitch in the matrix or I don't know what happened, but it was crazy.
Well, in New York, there's this high-end thrift store. It's called Housing Works. And I think it's like a charity for LGBT community. And they're even picky about when you call them and you want to donate furniture. They came after setting an appointment to pick up my couch. I was like, oh no, it has a little stain here. We're not going to take it. So they really curate what they offer in the store. It's like it's a cross between a vintage and a thrift store, right?
It's the consignment store of thrift stores.
And they have some vinyl, which I've gone to, and there's never anything good. But then they cherry pick some things that they think are worth more. And they had it behind the counter. It was a US pressing of The Wall for $90.
Oh, it's a $40.
And I'm like, what is that pressing? I said, can I have a look at that? Because like, is this something really rare that I'm missing? And I look at it, I'm like, this is just a common US pressing of The Wall, not even in pristine condition, that they want to pawn off to somebody for $90 just because it's Pink Floyd The Wall. And it's probably the best record that was donated to the store.
Yeah, whoever dug through those records knew Pink Floyd in the back of their head and was like,
this is worth something.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, the last thing I got to go, but the last thing I'll say on this topic is Goodwill. Sorry, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like Goodwill has that. They've organized where they have that website Shop Goodwill, or they have Goodwill finds. They've really diversified. They've instructed the local like receiving areas and the shops and the big donation centers to now records is now part of the things that they put online only. So if it's now what's gonna be next to impossible. They started this with high-end electronics, video games, etc. Now vinyl records is on that list that the stores and the receiving centers are told to literally pull back anything remotely interesting to then put on the website where they can auction style, eBay. Again, they sell them in lots, but I mean, it's if you've ever danced on there, it's criminal. Like they'll sell a lot of 10 just average records, and people don't know, and people get into the bidding. And so anyway, sorry, rest in peace, Goodwill finds, because never going to happen again. So anyway,
I saw a video that was
said.
sent.
Appreciate the time. Good to see everybody.
Okay, brother. Thanks, man. Let's do this again. I appreciate you showing up.
All good. See you guys. Bye-bye.
I think I'm going to head out too.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good time to cut everybody loose. You guys, thanks so much for coming to the stream, man, and joining me.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yep.
I'm still learning the ropes, so thanks for putting up with me. But I'd love to do it again sometime too, and maybe see you guys on Champ's stream as well.
Cool. Let us know.
I will. All right, you guys. All right, and for everyone that tuned in today, thanks so much. Thanks for joining in and sending all these great chat messages. I appreciate it. Everyone, have a good weekend. I'll see you later.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.